On Wall Street, the markets were closed in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. They'll be back up and running tomorrow. France's data privacy watchdog fined Google $57 million for what it calls a lack of transparency and, quote, inadequate information regarding ad personalization for users. This is the first penalty for a U.S. tech giant under new European data privacy rules. And a reminder, you can listen to Lou's Business Reports 3 times a day, coast to coast, on the Salem Radio Network. Well, the national left-wing media under fire for quickly condemning one high school student from Kentucky who they claim taunted a Native American during a protest this past weekend in D.C. The media wasted little time targeting high school student Nick Sandman, the student seen wearing the MAGA hat. However, new video from the weekend showing the 64-year-old Native American, in fact, was the one who confronted the high school student first. The high school students and Native American group were attending separate demonstrations before the viral confrontation. Joining me now, Charlie Hurt, Washington Times opinion editor and Fox Business contributor, and Tammy Bruce, Washington Times columnist and Fox Business contributor. Good to see you both.
Hi there.
Tammy, first to you. This incident says so much about where we are as a nation right now, where the mainstream media is, where liberal politicians are. What does it say to you?
Well, and it also moved, of course, because of social media. And you have edited videotape, and you have confirmation bias. People see, and this happened just within a day or so of the BuzzFeed article being debunked, where you hear what you want to hear, things are created that reinforce a narrative, that facts don't matter. It's about, well, it's something Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said on 60 Minutes. She was upset that people were more concerned about facts and statistics than being morally correct. Yeah, right? That flows into this idea of being morally correct as opposed to having facts that matter. So I would say, and we're going to, I think, hear more about this as it unfolds. Some people have apologized. It was also some people on the conservative sphere. I have a rule that actually started with Sarah Palin back in 2008. If something sounds insane, no, you don't have to believe it when you hear it. But also, if you've got two things like the BuzzFeed thing and this thing, that's like part of the fever dream of the anti-Trumpers, presume that it's not true.
But, you know, there's something very serious. We're laughing, and perhaps in a couple of years, other people will be laughing about it, too. But the fact is that this is a page from Saul Alinsky's book. The ends justify the means. I mean, we've seen it happen through generation and generation of failed, whether it's communist propaganda, that the facts are unimportant compared to...
It's like Gestapo's as well.
Exactly. It's the ends are what's important, and however you get there is okay. And again, to the BuzzFeed story, Charlie, you now have Adam Schiff, even though it's been totally denied by all of the interested parties, whether it was Donald Trump or Giuliani or Robert Mueller, who's no big fan of Donald Trump and vice versa. They've denied it, and yet Adam Schiff is going to continue on with his investigation. What world are they living in?
And you have actual journalists on places like CNN talking about how, oh, well, this one part of it has been debunked, but that doesn't mean that the story is at large isn't true. And it's the same thing that we heard after the Steele dossier came out. As item after item after item in the dossier was debunked, you still had people saying, but that doesn't mean that everything else isn't true. Well, you know what? Actually, it does start to begin to mean that, because when you start seeing the sort of prejudice that goes into this reporting,
right,
and you realize that these people are after it, they have an agenda, they're willing to make up things, then you have a real problem. And the real disturbing thing about the episode at the Lincoln Memorial, and you're right, David, you know, it is, you know, this is a kid who will never, ever outlive the memory. This will forever live in the internet forever. With some of these accusations, accusing him of being a racist, accusing him of being a Nazi in Germany in 1930s. I mean, it's just astonishing. But the really frightening thing about it is the media took that story and ran with it. And you know, I'm as upset as everybody is about the Twitter mob that went after him. But what's really terrifying is, if it hadn't been for the responsible people on Twitter, do you think the media would have ever fixed any of this stuff?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And to your point that the thing never goes away, even though it has been corrected by certain video that's come out since then, still it is so similar, Tammy, to those charges that were made in the 1950s of labeling people communists.
Yes,
This is McCarthyite tactics, where you think of the worst charge you can make against somebody. In the 50s, it was being a communist. Right now, it's being a racist, and they never go away. That's why so many of those blacklisted authors, et cetera, killed themselves.
Well, this is, and you're seeing it over and over again because it's a classic standard of the left, is to destroy an individual personally with an accusation that is so broad that it can't even necessarily be debunked, but before it moves out. So when I mention Gestapo, I don't do that lightly. That's what, of course, the Jews and Germans who were resisting in Germany also were faced with. But just so the audience remembers, we're talking about this now because we did find, via social media, distributed it as well, the larger video, the unedited video that showed the opposite of what was actually being claimed. Now, one person has had success in stopping the mob online, and that is Melania Trump. Remember, she sued right when they got into office, when disgusting claims were being made about her, and she won. I think this young man's family, there needs to, and maybe certain entities need to be gawkered in a certain way.
I think of the Wizard of Oz, that scene where the dog Toto takes the curtain and pulls it aside. You see, I think the curtain has been pulled aside for a lot of Americans who were on the fence about whether the media was fake or not. And we'll see how it plays out in politics to that point. And we only have about 30 seconds, Charlie, but we have Kamala Harris today coming out and announcing she's running for president. Now, she has an economic program. Talk about smoke and mirrors. She's got a $3 trillion tax plan that is never going to be paid for. Do you think the public is going to fall for that kind of logic?
No, I don't think that they are, and it's going to get only worse as more people announce for the Democratic nomination, and they drive the party farther and farther to the left.